Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today. I really appreciate you taking note of the 2-minute warning and your discourse. It's very appreciated. I think many of you know that a number of years ago, under the directive of Brenda Hetrick, I'm sure everybody knows Brenda, we created the Media Ad Sales Council, and as part of that, we always seek to not only be a partner to our clients, but really help establish some initiatives, some thought leadership within the industry to help us move forward, particularly around media ad sales, as that is our business. So this morning we do have the esteemed panel, and we certainly appreciate everybody's participation. I'm going to introduce Joe Lamprecht, who's going to be your moderator and host, and he's a member of MESS. He's from, and I'm going to probably butcher some names here. Is he on Omni Media? Omni Media, I'm sorry. Okay. There you go. I'm already starting down. You know, I use old names. But we also appreciate the participation of Cognistics, FinCom's, Imagine, and Pure Integrations. So with that, I'm going to have Joe come up, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. If everyone can hear me, I'll forego use of the karaoke device. Let's take a little walk down memory lane while we're here together. You all may remember EDI, perhaps programmatic selling for traditional media. How about addressable advertising? Blockchain for advertising was an old favorite. And you might ask, what do all these then have in common? Well, if you remember, as I'm sure many of you do, they all came on the scene with a lot of fanfare and a prediction that this will be the year of insert your choice. In reality, during each of these year ofs, the industry engaged in what some might call teenage sex. In other words, everyone talked about it. Nobody really knew how to do it. Everyone thought everyone else was doing it. So everyone claimed they were doing it. Well, I'm here today to tell you that AI for ad ops is not our latest version of teenage sex. And in fact, I'm pleased to tell you that we've assembled 4 speakers and 4 organizations today who will tell you what they're doing today in this realm of AI. So, first, we'll hear from Sanjay Chopra from Cognistics. Cognistics is a Pittsburgh-based AI products company, and he'll be providing us with some background on AI, its evolution, and use cases that are being addressed in the market today. Francesco Moretti from FinCom's will then discuss the use of AI within their award-winning application for the automation of video management processes. Pure Integrations' Jeff Brzezinski will follow this up with an overview of how AI within Pure Integrations' Content Check product is unlocking opportunities in the creative review process. And then wrapping things up from the presenters, we'll have Frank Deo from Imagine Communications explain how Imagine has been utilizing AI as a software coding assistant to greatly reduce cycle times and accuracy in the modernization of a major broadcast traffic application. After all of that, we'll assemble our panel for a discussion, and we'll then wrap it up by taking some questions from you in the audience. So without any further ado, Sanjay, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me or? Okay, perfect. So we let Deanna bring up the slides. Yeah. While she's doing that, the choice of my jacket was pure coincidence. I didn't plan to blend in with the environment so well. So just worked out that way. Sometimes you get lucky. So let me give you a little background on AI and what AI is all about. So AI has been around for a while. It started in the 1950s. Alan Turing well, one of the famous sort of, computer scientists from UK and then obviously here in the US is when they started inventing machines that could do what humans could do. Think like humans, act like humans, solve problems like humans. And that was the advent. That's the background, and that's how it started. What has happened in the last 6 to 8 years, computing power has taken huge positive turn. Now we have computers that can understand us. Word error rate when we speak and when we talk with Alexa, Siri, Google, and everything is actually better than humans. So if there's a machine listening to me talking or any of us talking, it makes fewer mistakes than one of us hearing each other. So that sort of has gone up significantly. And another area where computers have come a lot is in terms of computer vision. Their ability to see things, recognize objects, recognize images, and label them appropriately. So that's changing. And obviously, we have, unimodal Teslas driving itself down the street as a result of that, which is a big feat for it to be able to just see the objects around it and be able to navigate and move from that perspective. The third thing.
Just go down to advanced.
Okay. So that's the slide sort of we talk about, empowering AI. That's what our company does. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Actually, I'll go here and then go back to the other slides. However, we'll do it the other way around. So the third thing I was going to talk about is large language models. So of course, all of you have used probably ChatGPT or Claude, Anthropic, Llama. There's a lot of them out there. The third big thing that has happened from an AI perspective is computers being able to understand large amount of text, any files, PDF, other documents, video files, audio files, and then be able to create content and summarize content based on that, and also answer questions. What did you see in this document? Tell me more about it. And I was talking to this fine lady here earlier. So let's say if you have 8Ks or 10Ks from various companies, NBC, ABC, it can analyze all that data and summarize it to you. Show me the revenue graphs, show me other trends, show me ROI from that perspective. So the AI has the ability to do that, analyze what people used to do, and be able to do it and do it pretty well. But obviously, this doesn't happen automatically. One big thing that you need to train AI models and do things well is have learning data or input data so that you could come up with good output. So if you have really good training data, you get really good output. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And that is specifically true for predictive models and sort of, where we need to analyze the data and make predictions based on that. That's where we need to first go in and clean the data, analyze the data, and then make predictions based on that. Once the underlying data is clean, is when you get clean results coming out of it. So that sort of, makes sense from that perspective. Some of the use cases, what we have seen with AI, one of them is customer segmentation. And that works very well across several different industries, but specifically for ad tech and ad sales, it's huge from that perspective. It'll automatically, based on a multivariate analysis, so looking at many different variables, ad spend, seasonality in demand, or other key variables, segregate and put my customers into various different baskets, automatically continue to dynamically change these baskets so that I can take actionable insights for each of those segments. Try this campaign here, try this. Would this work well for this segment? AI is very good at it, and it also analyzes the results. You have a feedback loop built into it that then changes things and sort of, improves it. It learns itself. The more data it sees, the more data that comes through the system from that perspective. One more, thank you. So one more sort of key point is also being able to look at seasonality in demand. Obviously, right now, if we all turn on the TV, and sometimes I dread turning on the TV, as we see, especially if you come from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is you get a lot of political ads, right? Um, Football season has other things. Summer has other things. So you are able to predict based on the season, based on things that are happening, what will be hot in the market, what trends will come out, and what trends will sort of not come out this year as much as they used to in the past. But it is very important to understand that to be able to effectively predict seasonality in demand, you need at least 3-4 years worth of data, past historical data, which is clean and actionable. Because obviously each season repeats itself after every year, and unless you have 2 or 3 really good data points, being able to make predictions based on that becomes very hard from that perspective. But once the models are trained and trained well, they perform phenomenally well these days. Another sort of big trend that when I was talking about the history of AI is neural networks or deep learning models. And what they have done is, without too much data, being able to make much better prediction by using, complex architectures and frameworks to be able to make those predictions. So that also is a big change in terms of the power of AI and its ability to make predictions from that perspective. The last one sort of, I wanted to kind of talk about and touch base is using large language models. And what we have also seen is people's productivity as a result of large language models like ChatGPT and other things has gone up as much as 10 to 14%. We'll have more time to do higher order tasks and higher order thinking, because now you don't need to read all your emails. It can sort of sift through them, summarize the emails from you, only show you the important emails, even respond to emails automatically. So that obviously takes a big chunk of some of our days, being able to do that, or reading complex documents. So I actually, I didn't talk about my background. I'm also on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. So I get lots of these large documents on inflation, economy, how things are going. I actually use our own models to summarize that and then ask questions, and it gives me a pretty good answer on sort of, various trends we are seeing from an employment perspective or an inflation perspective, what's happening in various districts. So the summarization power is become much, much better. So it's where, you would have an intern or somebody helping you out to summarize the information, or then you have to sift through all the information and then something else happens. Now I have to jump on another call. It's all there. So it gives us all the ability to do much higher order tasks and higher order thinking. And the mundane part, the grunt work, is where the AI is taking over and solving problems from that perspective. So that's kind of what I had prepared. I'll go back the other side, quickly kind of talk about. So I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I graduated from Carnegie Mellon. So I'm under sort of educated from that perspective. I only have a couple of masters when it compares to my co-founder. He got his PhD in computer science at Carnegie Mellon. He was the director of the computational data science program and was one of the leading researchers behind IBM Watson. So I was also at IBM, and like I said, I'm also on the board of the Cleveland Fed. So that's a little bit about my background and my thinking of application in this field.
Sanjay,
Back to you, Joe.
Thank you. I know you operate at your firm across a number of different industries. Is there any one or two in particular that you would point out as being leaders in the adoption of AI and sort of ahead of the curve?
Great question, thank you. So a couple of areas where we're seeing a lot in terms of the large language models is actually law firms being able to, and even companies that have lots of contracts with lots of people, uploading all those contracts into our platform called Square and saying what was the termination clause, what happens in this case. So now you don't have to look through all these complex legal documents. You can ask AI to synthesize it for you. Even sort of, some of the unions where they are, working with many different organizations, many different buildings, maintaining them and cleaning them and sort of operating them. They're looking to use AI to do those questions. Complex documents with sort of standards organization is where we see the same thing. So think about where a typical document is complicated. You need either somebody with legal expertise or engineering expertise to be able to analyze the documents. Let the AI do that for you. So the high knowledge base intense applications, we're seeing a lot of applications for that. The other area where we are seeing a lot of changes is being able to use AI for route planning and prediction and optimization. So we actually work quite a bit with propane distribution companies, some of them in this area, Suburban Propane and AmeriGas and some of the other ones. And we can now predict very effectively, and that translates well into the ad tech space. When will somebody run out of propane? So you can go there when they have 20% left in the tank, come up with the best route possible so you maximize number of gallons delivered while minimizing number of miles driven to be able to sort of service all your clients in a timely manner without them running out of propane. So that's sort of, also one of the
Excellent.
good use cases.
Well, thanks so much for that grounding in AI basics, and let's make sure we catch up later. I'd love some tips on how to brighten up my wardrobe. Let's move over now to Francesco and a little bit of background on the work that they're doing.
Feel free to stand or sit.
Thank you. I will follow the suggestion. Thank you so much, because I like to see all the audience, and I'm Italian, we like to be in the spotlight. So thank you everybody, welcome. Thank you everybody for being here, and I'm glad to be among this very nice group of panelists, and to introduce how we are using AI in the media. So first statement, AI is not only a buzzword like many other things that have come and go in the industry. People are definitely using it now since some time. And we at FinCons, for those who don't know FinCons yet, we are a very nice award-winning global family-owned company using physical presence in the market where we are, and very glad to be in North America and Europe, with a model of offshoring to augment our capability. And we work across few verticals. Well, the media is the most internationalized already, so we do have clients like broadcasters and publishers and studios and other in the ecosystem globally. And how we have been existing so far since 41 years. My father was the founder, really liking change in the industry, embracing change. Starting from COBOL mainframe, going through client servers, ERPs, and now, of course, in the web and modern technology. We really see the change like opportunity, and we love to invest before that those change become adopted in this industry to help our clients navigate this change. And how we do it, we like to do it in partnering with clients often. One of our values is once we start working with clients, we stay there for decades, and this is how we can leverage our value, bringing the capability to the new era. And that's what happened with Mediaset. Mediaset is one of the largest European broadcasters. You can think of it like a sort of small NBC, for example, with the proper scales if you think to North America and Italy. So this should be considered. We work with Mediaset since more than 30 years, and how is Mediaset embracing the change? They created their own lab for research, and they study a lot of research, and they put this into a pipeline to experiment it. So not really focusing on this slide, just to say that it's a very complex process we have been involved on. And what they did, they tried to prioritize new use cases with new technology in a priority matrix, and the A is the top right, so it's the most prioritized, which is using video AI to transform their business and better serve their audience. So along with this initiative, they have launched an RFP for system integrators, asking them to propose the best usage of the services, AI services already in the market. So what we have been doing with them was a journey. So not just replying to the RFP, but working with them, studying all different variables, using various AI services there, so that the big hyperscaler, open sources, customs application, and we came up with a matrix that analyze how best services could serve the use case of Mediaset, and this is how Advisor was conveyed. So we started with 3 major use cases that are today in production, and we used actually AWS Media to Cloud services as a core backbone to implement these workflows, building on top of it. And what we do, the most important is automatically propose a break detection, break cue point to insert advertising in the content. This is possible both on the linear over the air or for the streaming. You can imagine the value in the streaming. Traditionally, in the streaming, the advertising is launched every X seconds, not caring about disrupting all what's happening. What we can do now with Advisor is recognizing the video, recognizing the audio, and detect the best point, like the change of scene, or so not really disrupting the storytelling of the content, and maybe enriching the value for the audience. Also with the second use case, that is contextual advertising. So thanks to having analyzed the video, we can definitely, integrating with the ad server, propose an advertising that fit with the story that the user, the audience is watching, and can also follow the profiles of who's watching. So this is definitely an added value for the audience. And the third use case is coming and used for many other use cases, because this is also auto tagging. So while we do the first and the second use case, we automatically tag the content with all sorts of metadata that can be utilized. So this is a sort of also efficiency, because every time you call a service in the cloud of AI, you have to pay. So we just upfront benefit of the code that we are doing to create further possible usage and enrichment and monetization of the content itself. So I already shared that the winner was AWS with us, and very proud also to say that we have been awarded at NAB this year with the NAB Product of the Year among other emerging products using AI. How Advisor works and where you would like to have it in your architecture. So looking at the top of these pictures, we definitely integrate with the MAM, and for Mediaset case it was direct. We ingest all the content in low-res format in what we have implemented in the ingestion capability. So what we have implemented is in the box, so all the purple boxes, and the UI for the user portal. Once we ingest all the content, we send it to the AWS Media to Cloud, and then we process it, and then there is a sort of post-elaboration where the content is prepared to be re-ingested in the MAM with the proper augmentation of metadata, cue points, and all the rest. And eventually, user can still have a look at it before publishing again to adjust or to finalize the cue points that are identified. So this is just the first usage of AI at Mediaset that is really changing and creating new monetization opportunities, but also saving, because of course Mediaset can then leverage on the team that was manually creating the ad insertion for other use cases internally for the business. And very much more interesting, there's a roadmap for future use cases to be further implemented, starting from Advisor, that will really become the core of all the AI within Mediaset. Thank you so much for the kind attention. I hope to have been in the time despite of these many slides. I hope to have gave an overview. Of course, happy to deep dive at your convenience. Thank you for this opportunity. If you have any question, happy to.
Francesco, thanks so much for that overview, and we'll now move things along to Jeff.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Pazinski from Pure Integration. I'm excited to be here to share a little bit more about what we're doing in the AI space. First, just a little bit of background on who we are. We are a consultancy in this space. We work primarily in ad business transformation, driving any strategic projects around people, process, data, or technology. So in some cases, that's us helping to implement ad tech. In other cases, it might be us helping to drive profitability analysis, or in the case we're going to talk about today, some custom solutions around AI and how we're helping the creative world. So wanted to share a little bit about the trends that we're seeing, especially when it comes to ad creatives, right? The rise of programmatic, which I think we heard about earlier today, but also there's a lot happening on the AI side with ad generation. There's a lot of personalization driving unique ad creatives. Amazon has launched and released some of the tools that they're doing to create AI-based ads. There's worry about deepfake technology, and a lot of this that's happening in the industry. One of the big things that we're seeing that's not really getting talked about a lot is just the number of creatives that are coming through are really overwhelming a lot of teams that are in charge of reviewing and making sure that content is brand safe and that we understand exactly what's getting delivered. Especially, we find in a lot of our clients, programmatic is a little bit of a black box for them, right? Especially if you have a linear or traditional business, you might be able to keep up with the volumes and the uniques that are happening there, but programmatic tends to be one that's just not really capable of rising to the scale. So I want to talk a little bit about how we've addressed this situation, and that's where Content Check has come in. So we've developed the Content Check solution to really establish a way to watch and listen and read every advertisement, whether that's video, display, audio, just like a person would. Our goal is to try and make sure that all of these creatives are able to be reviewed for things like sensitive content, tech specs, anything that you would normally have a person reviewing an advertisement for, and as well as some additional things that we think are really valuable. We want to bring that to a publisher's background. And so our goal is that Content Check can be a solution across all sales channels, whether that's a direct business or programmatic, self-service, anything that has ad creatives coming in. We have the ability to have Content Check be in place to review and provide feedback and insights against those ad creatives. Those insights and details can then be handed down to any ad decisioning engine. So this is where you start to get into making the ability to have better decisions of what's running across the portfolio, as well as a lot of those insights that can help drive some further sales intelligence, unlocking ad revenue, which we're going to talk a little bit about, as well as the ad experience itself, which is an important component. So let's talk a little bit about the unlocking ad revenue. So one of the things that we've heard from a lot of our publisher clients is that in a lot of cases, categories are either completely turned on or off. Political, pharma, gambling, these are things that in a lot of cases are deemed brand unsafe or too risky. So we're just not going to run any of these categories. And what we found is there's leaving some money on the table, right? Some of these campaigns are higher CPM campaigns. And the reality is many of the creatives in this space are still brand safe. There's still things that are not going to drive a lot of risk, but there are certain creatives in this space that are. So how do you distinguish the difference? And that's where Content Check can come in. So Content Check can review an ad, tell you exactly the sentiment of that ad, the tone, are there any sensitive topics, are there any sensitive images in this ad, that would not be deemed compliant or meet the standards of your guidelines. And then you can make the decision, is this something we really want to put to air or not? And ultimately, this is really all about reputational risk and brand safety. What can be done to open up some of these higher CPM categories, but also make sure that we're not giving up any of the brand safety and standards that we have come to know. And rather than having people intervene in all of this process, we now have an AI opportunity to make this a much more streamlined and efficient process. One example too is around enhancing sales intelligence. So if you can imagine a world where today there's a lot of lack of visibility to what's happening when it comes to a lot of these sales channels. And so whether some of your customers might be shifting spend into programmatic or away or into a self-service channel, there's a little bit of insight that we understand that's coming through certain data points. But imagine a world where you knew every creative that was running across your portfolio. You knew the brands, as you can see the example here in the McDonald's ad. We're picking up every time a brand is flashed across the screen. We know the product lines that they're trying to promote. We know if there's tentpole events or what's the sentiment of these ads. And imagine the sales intelligence that can be brought back into your teams to be able to say, how do we know now how to find lookalike profiles, better sales intelligence around who we should be targeting. We talked a little bit about customer segmentation earlier. This is a big component of that as well, being able to know exactly what's running across that portfolio. This is also an opportunity for us to understand the categories to help drive ad decisioning around competitive separation or things like that that might be important around the brand category. Next up, around the premium ad experience. So I want to talk a little bit about making sure that these ads both meet the standards and compliance around the brand safety piece. So we have an example here. This is a Spanish ad. So we've picked up the language in these ads. We understand not just whether an ad is English or Spanish or French or whatnot, but perhaps to what degree is the ad in a particular language or not. That may help you make a decision on where or if this creative should run at all. There's also sponsorship messages for a lot of our political campaigns. We need to make sure that there's regulatory compliance, that a sponsorship message is on the screen for a certain amount of time, or that there is certain criteria met that's part of the FEC guidelines. We have the ability to run custom rules against all of that as well. So there's an opportunity to make sure that these important regulations are met and that you have an opportunity to keep those intact. We've also have an example here around a news station that this ad creative on the lower left is showing a breaking news title. This isn't an ad though, so there's an opportunity here to create confusion. Is this an actual news spot? And I don't want to promote anything that could be in conflict with my own news category. So let me know without turning off entire categories when ads like this show up, and let me be able to turn those off and make sure that I'm not creating any undue confusion. So overall, we've got an opportunity here, sorry, one more slide, to bring back that visibility and control that I think a lot of our publishers are feeling is slipping away. There's an opportunity to drive additional ad revenue, go after higher CPM campaigns, but with precision, right? The ability to make sure that entire categories are not just mandated as off limits, but we actually run creatives that we feel good about and that meet our standards. And also streamline that process. We don't have to have a lot of people involved in this. We still need some people to help make decisions around certain gray areas, or let's streamline that though so it's not as high cost, and ultimately improve the ad experience for our customers as well. So that's what we're excited about. Would love to catch up with anyone who'd like to hear more about this. We actually have Nick Hunter, if you want to raise your hand. Nick's in the room. He's the kind of lead architect that has built Content Check, so he'll be able to tell you exactly some of the nuts and bolts of how it works. But thank you, I'm excited to talk more about this.
Jeff, thanks. Jeff, I just had a quick question. The applicability of content check to the broadcast community is obvious. I was curious to know, are you seeing any interest or application for content check from either the content creator or the buying community preemptively or otherwise?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things that we think is going to be an actual reality, and I think it came up earlier in Francesco's discussion, contextual advertising is kind of having a renaissance, right? And the ability to understand exactly what's happening from the content side and the buy side is half of the equation. The other half is what's the sentiment of the ad? What's the right brand exposure? How do we map both of these back together? So we feel like there is an important component from the buy side to understand where my ad and messaging will fit in with some of the actual content itself, and be able to find that match. And so right now, there's a lot of people doing content analysis on the actual content itself, and we believe that the ad deserves just as much of that attention, and so that's why we've been focusing there.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. So now batting cleanup for us will be Frank Deo from Imagine.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming and paying attention to us while we bore you this morning. But hopefully you gain some insights into AI and where it's going. I'm Frank Deo, and as most of you know, Imagine Communications is a broadcast and ad tech technology company, and it's been around for a very long time. There are two divisions within Imagine: a make side, which is everything to do with play out and creating video to stream to end customers, and monetize, which is everything to do with advertising and ad tech. I'm the CTO on the ad tech side, so that's my focus. Imagine was faced with a number of challenges. We've acquired many companies over a period of time, and some of our technology is, first of all, it's very varied and it's all over the place, but some of our technology is a little older, built on older technology and monolithic applications, quite frankly. And so we were faced with a challenge of taking our premier broadcast traffic system and modernizing it to enable things like better modern security, to enable headless operation, or more automation of the application. And the investments required to do that in a traditional way, rewrite a UI, build a new back end, were very expensive and very difficult to justify from an ROI perspective. So we turned our eyes to artificial intelligence, and just one use of it, but using Gen AI as a tool and an opportunity to create solutions to those technical problems in a way that was more affordable and provided Imagine with an ROI that made sense and a price point of a product for you folks that also makes sense. And so using AI to lower the cost of our product, accelerate our development time, was the main goal. And we had a number of challenges that we wanted to achieve. Building a cloud native application which could reduce the cost, support work from home modalities where people could easily access the applications. Automation, right? We all know that there's a massive challenge on the cost of your operation in the broadcast community, in the broadcast space. And it was critical for us to start to address that. And so our strategy there was to acquire an OMS system and link the OMS system to the traffic system and really start to share the UI and have a similar and eventually one UI across both order management and traffic systems. So we acquired a product from Marketron that used to be called Rev, we now call it Crossflight. And so really bringing OSI, our traffic product, to the modern world of having a similar UI, web-based UI, was very, very important to us. We wanted to also provide a higher level of integration. I talked about that. We had to reduce the cost, the cost and the time to market. And then we wanted better quality for you folks. If we're going to operate in a managed service or a cloud environment, I want to make sure that I know that there's a problem with the system before there's actually a problem, so that I can improve and respond to that. If disks are running low or there's a problem in performance where queries are taking longer, I want to be able to see that. So we did a tremendous amount of focus in re-architecting this application to include built-in testing and monitoring. So that hopefully will help you all reduce your operational costs. One of the things I wanted to talk about is some basic facts about AI. In the last year, large language models and the ability for them to take input data has grown over 50 times, so an order of magnitude times 5 in just a year. I've read articles that say over the 10 years since AI was introduced last year, say, if last year was year 0, 10 years from now, the amount of innovation that the human experience will achieve in the next 10 years is equivalent to the innovation that occurred in the last 100 years. That's kind of really hard to take when you think about the rapid expansion of technology. But AI is about efficiency. It's about, as Sanjay spoke of, just taking away the grunt work. And that's today. It's going to continue to expand. So the two usage models, or the one I'm speaking of is Gen AI. We're well underway with a project to utilize that, and it's creating some really good stats, and I'll share those with you in a second. And the second is, how do you use AI to do better optimization, to do better data science modeling? And I come from a data science background. And so data scientists are very expensive staff. There's not a ton of really good ones. It takes a unique personality, somebody who's equally skilled in both software and mathematics. So they're expensive, they're difficult to work with. They're wonderful people, but they're a little quirky, you know. And so finding really good, talented people is an expensive proposition. And the world has gotten over that hump, but it is still an expensive proposition. What AI can do on the model side is to iterate on models with like doing the multivariate analysis that Sanjay spoke of, is something that AI excels at. So you get to see a very, very broad swath of iterations that a human driving the model wouldn't think of, because they really don't see the forest through the trees. They don't understand what analytics they're trying to get to, or what the corollaries and what data is constructive in terms of building towards a certain answer, and what data is maybe confusing or destructive in that analysis. And so AI is going to greatly expand the ability to do optimization and modeling. And then I think you just have to be very, very careful that you do a very good job of testing those models before you put them into production. So we're working on a pipeline where AI supports our modeling, and then we do a testing and validation, and through a human regulated process, we test and validate new models, and when we decide that a new model is truly performing better than the old model, we publish it to production, and then it takes over. So we don't take the human out of the way just yet, but we use AI to create new and better models that then we can publish to production. So I think AI has got a tremendous amount of promise, and I think there are some downsides, but good governance is important, and understanding how to use it, and when to use it and where not to use it, and what to watch out for, and how to bring human intervention to assure that it doesn't go off the track. What we've seen in generative AI and the ability to create efficiency is quite astonishing. For every developer, every 2 developers, you get a free developer when using Gen AI. It's about 55% efficient. It creates that much efficiency. And that's today, where AI is not especially good at creating new and unusual code, but really good at doing a lot of the repetitive tasks. Documentation time, it's 90% efficient in creating documentation. So you end up with a better product that's more maintainable. easier to understand what the code is doing, easier to hand off from developer to developer if you have churn on your team. The mental energy conservation that it frees up in the developers not have to worry, that they don't have to worry about the detail as much, just creates them the ability to have that free time to go back and think about architecture, to spend more time making sure that their application is going to perform under all circumstances. What are the corner cases? What are the features that I need to add to this application? And so they find themselves significantly refreshed. Most of the developers find that they learn. It's a phenomenal trading tool. AI makes good coders great, and it can make bad coders better, but it can also make bad coders worse. And how it does that is bad coders tend to say, oh, I gave it to the AI, and they get lazy. They don't do the reviews. So a peer review process is critical when using generative AI to make sure that you're enforcing your coding standards and that everything is of the highest quality, and creating and keeping a very good set of AIs so you understand who are the good developers that are now great and who are the bad developers that have gotten better and who are the bad developers that have taken the easy way out and maybe aren't doing your product the best service, if you will. So we had a staff that was skilled at certain technologies, but they weren't skilled at the low-code, no-code technologies we're using to build these new modern UIs. And so I could have gone out and restaffed, and that's very expensive and time-consuming. But given AI, I took a couple of my better coders and one of my architects, and we set up the coding standard, and within weeks, they were coding in new languages that they had never used before. Then taking that model and expanding it and teaching others is really phenomenal. And AI does one other thing. It gives you the ability to keep your team size smaller. Small development teams code at an efficiency rate far superior to larger teams. If you can have a team of 2 or 3 well-trained people all working very tightly together, you can create a lot of code very fast. As that team gets larger, the efficiency of lines of code per team member go way down. So having that AI as sort of that co-pilot, if you will, is really, really important. The overall time to product completion is much faster, much cheaper. And then developers themselves find more satisfaction because they're doing the things they like to do. They're solving the hard problems of how to make the software work, and they're not worried about, oh, I need to repeat this, or I need to document this code. So they're spending more time with the science of software development and far less time worried about the productization of that code. The AI is really, really good at that. And the last piece I will say is that the AI models have gotten so much better within the last year, it's really hard to imagine. So within the next year, AI will be really good at creating new and unusual code, as well as doing those repetitive cycles that software developers don't do. So I only expect that this acceleration will continue. And it's just been a wonderful experience for me to see how people who were sort of set in their ways have become extremely productive using this new set of tools. I think it's here to stay. I think there's cautionary tales, 0-day defects getting into your code. You have to make sure you have good governance and good process to make sure that you're verifying and testing your code to weed those out. And AI will only continue to get better, and that'll become less and less of a problem. But you can't take the human out of the development process, but it makes the job a lot more fun, a lot more efficient, and you end up with a higher quality of code. So it's really a very nice adventure we're all starting on. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Frank.
No worries.
Frank, just to give folks in the room a sense of the efficiency gain, I wonder if you'd mind sharing with us what your internal estimates were for time to complete this complete rewrite traditionally versus your expectations utilizing AI as an assistant.
Yeah, sure. So we estimated that it was a 9-person, 2-year project. We're going to complete it with 5 in about 10 months. So it's pretty dramatic.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Well, let's take a few moments now to mine the collective intelligence and experience of our panel. I'll kick it off with just a few questions for the group. So what I'm curious about is that as your own company began its journey into the world of AI, what, if any, misconceptions did you have, and how did that then alter your approach to embracing AI? So, Francesco, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thanks. That's a great question because it's not an off-the-shelf product that you go there and you acquire and you insert into your organization and you use it. So we have been talking a lot before launching an internal initiative, our own tech lab, to experiment, to do POCs, to do exercises, how to really leverage and benefit from usage of AI. And we have also been benefiting from, in Europe, there are funds that are given for the research. So we applied for these funds together, integrated into consortium of 15, 20 players like universities, research centers, end users. So creating really a common intelligence on really defining the best usage and the best adoption of this new instrument. And of course, it's not still clear, the development and really the threat of using it publicly, all questions related to privacy, to security. So it's really still a word to be unveiled. My personal opinion and what Fincos is doing is really trying to leverage the most pragmatical side of it. So really define use cases and implement it and use it in a managed environment just to progress and build on top of it, having an informate, let's say, progress on the adoption.
Excellent. Thank you. Sanjay.
Sure, I'll take also this opportunity to stand up and use the mic this time. So obviously AI, we've been doing this for a really long time, like I said, 30 plus years. 2-3 points I would like to mention. So one, we've talked about that here as well. Keeping the human in the loop is very important. You need to have the right guardrails in place as you deploy AI or any AI solution. You can't have it run autonomously and sort of, make decisions on its own. Having human in the loop, having the checks and balances is very critical. And there's some organizations out there, they're sort of, selling snake oil and saying, hey, AI can do this, AI can solve all those problems. The second point I will say is have proof of concepts. Start small, check the results, validate the results, see if you can, again, going back to clean data, you can clean the data, make the data better, and then sort of, again, view the results. Also, sort of, it's not going to be a one and done thing. It's not like you put a model in place, data changes, the kind of ads that are coming in changes to your example, feeds are changing, content is changing, so you may need to go back there and retrain the models and sort of let the AI adjust to the new world. So that is also very important, having that part of the process and doing that. So these are some of the caveats that I would say that any organization who's looking to adopt AI in their process should be looking at doing. So those are my thoughts there.
Thank you.
Jeff. Thanks. Those are great points. I think the only area I'd probably mention in addition is there's a tendency, a misconception to think about AI as one thing, right? As I think, Sanjay, you mentioned, it's been around a long time. What we're really seeing is an inflection point where there are a lot of AI-based solutions and services that are all unique and independent, but can be used together. So when we were building Content Check, we're thinking about how do we leverage object detection, computer vision, large language models. These are all AI services, but they are unique and independent, and they can be leveraged in a way that can build a much better, stronger solution. So it's not just one way to solve this. It takes some analysis and testing to figure out what are the right ways to approach that. And I think it's all about making sure that we're thinking about leveraging it in the right swim lane, right? It's not just going to come in and step on all of the kind of work that our teams and processes are doing today. What are those elements where it can be most impactful? Let's start there, and let's make sure it's proven and that it's well tested, and that we have an ability to see that ROI before we start to just expand it into new areas.
Well, I certainly agree with everything that was said, and I can't stress that AI is going to weave its way throughout our society in ways that we can only imagine today. I think one of the best places to get started with is to really, as Sanjay said again, garbage in, garbage out. And when we look at the data that we get from digital ads, it's really garbage. There's definitions that are distinct and different based on the platform, based on the delivery mechanism. What is it? What is an audio? What is a view? Is it 1 second? Is it 1 frame? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 30 seconds? Until we as an industry get together and decide what those true measures and what that data should look like, AI is going to be shooting in the dark. And because it's only as good. What happened when Microsoft, I don't know if you remember this, but Microsoft created an AI personality that read Twitter and Instagram and a bunch of things, and within 3 days it turned into this horrible, racist, homophobic entity that they had to take down because it was only as good as the data it read on the internet, and the majority of the traffic was garbage from people not thinking. So I just stress that we as an industry need to potentially work on the quality of the data that we could potentially then feed into AI models. And I think we'll have a business where it's very efficient to create audience-based campaigns, and there'll still be a need for mass awareness brand campaigns that expand broad reach programming like the Super Bowl. And how do you create that linear experience of an ad in a digital world where everybody gets that same ad? But that would be my advice for the consortiums that support this industry, is to unify the data, and doesn't matter where it starts. We can do ETLs to transform that data and clean the data, but we have to understand what that final target data set should look like.
So Frank, stay here for a moment.
Sure.
I'll start with you on the next question.
Sure.
Curious to know, what are the questions that Imagine, in your case, are being asked most often by customers and prospective customers who are considering how to leverage AI to transform their business within their operation set?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty unique to each individual customer. I haven't really seen a consensus set of questions come in that everybody thinks about the future of their business. And I span a lot of different markets. We have products that are built for the rest of the world. We have products that are built for US cable, for cable nets, and for the broadcast community. And I think right now the people are just trying to figure out how to make sense of digital and how to control costs. I think controlling costs is probably the biggest thing, especially going into an odd year next year. Minus Olympics, minus political. I think people are really trying to understand how that's going to impact their business. And then, the second piece would be, what does my future look like when streaming is ubiquitous and people can't find my shows? And how do I remind them that they started watching 3 episodes of a series they loved but forgot where it is and haven't watched it in 3 months? And how do they drive the message to their potential customers on that retention, that eyeball, so that they have an audience to work with on which to sell ads to. So anyway.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Jeff, would you like to address the question?
I think unsurprisingly, most of the clients that we're hearing from today, it's really two-pronged. One is there's an infinite interest in understanding as much about AI solutions as possible. I think we kind of touched on it earlier in the frame when we said it's the latest buzzword, but I think we could all agree that this has gotten a little bit more traction than most of those previous details. There's a lot of interest in understanding everything that's happening, but then that's immediately followed up with, where do I begin? How do I start? Is it really going to affect my operations? Is it really ready? Like, are we ready to lean into it now? Should we be waiting? Where do we begin? So I think that's where we're spending a lot of time, in some kind of cases, just advising clients on the right areas of their process and operations to lean into. Because I think we've all said today, there are a lot of areas where AI can be greatly beneficial today, and it just needs to be implemented carefully with some thought about what's the vision and direction for this to go. But we also need to keep in mind that it's advancing at such a rate that if we don't start today, we're going to be limiting our ability to take on some of the more advanced functionality and features that are going to start to come out in applications, as well as things we could be doing from a process and industry standpoint. So I think it's time to start the adoption curve, but do it carefully and do it with some thought process, and that's kind of the main questions that we're seeing.
Francesco, thoughts on the topic?
Of course, that's a very interesting question as well, and I already said a little bit in my speech, and Jeff also mentioned. I think today is starting becoming very clear which use case can be possible using AI, but clients are asking actually where to start, no? So which service should I use? How mature they are, and how can I combine those and integrate, and what will be the cost of it? Of course, it's a recurring cost, so how can I leverage from this recurring cost to create value for the company? So those are all questions that we are dealing with, and not really easy to reply, because we are definitely discovering as we progress in the usage of this technology or different technology. So remain very open and not easy to address.
That's it. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Anyone? Seeing none. Let me toss out one additional then. Some in the community have expressed concern over deployment of fully autonomous AI that would have the ability to operate and process data without any human intervention or oversight. As it relates to ad ops in particular, where would you draw the line or the boundaries on the deployment of autonomous AI? Anyone?
Yeah, I know in terms of content check, this is an important question that we've tried to evaluate, because obviously brand safety and reputational risk, we're trying to make this a much more streamlined and easy process. The challenge is, it's a 0% failure rate, right? You cannot get something like that wrong. So we do still see humans and people being involved in some of these processes, but doing so in a much more efficient, careful, and productive way. So rather than spending so much time and energy doing some of the basic tasks, how do we make sure that we are putting people in the most valuable places possible, double checking, validating what AI is doing, but also making sure that we're getting the most out of the people that we have as part of the process. So fully autonomous workflows and processes, I don't think we're there yet, but I don't think that should be a reason to push us away from that direction. We just have to make sure we have the right processes and fail-safes in place.
So I think it's really what I was chatting about a little bit before. We can build a CI/CD model that has an AI running in the background, develops a model, and say this is a test candidate, and sends it to a test environment where that model can be used on historic data to predict future data, which is also historic. And then when you get a validated score and this model proves to be higher than the previous model and score, you could promote it automatically to production. But I think that's a nuanced step in preventing the AI and putting it directly into production. I think we're a ways away from that, and there's a lot on the line. So I think brand safety and all the other factors come to play, and financial success as well. I think you're going to want to have that intermediate step of validating the model, which could be somewhat automated in that process. So, but it's not just the wild, wild west of where AI says, oh, I'm going to try this new model, and you let it go into production. I don't think that we're there yet. Anybody else?
All right, well, thank you all. Thanks to the panel. Any final questions? Yes.
Are there any current government regulations for AI? And do you foresee, after this gets off the ground more, that there will be government-led guardrails put in place that will not let you be the Wild West anymore?
Thank you. Just to rephrase for those in the back, the question was whether there are any current government regulations restricting the use or application of AI, and whether anyone on the panel sees any future legislation that might further restrict its adoption in any particular area. Sanjay, let me turn that to you.
Sure, I'll be happy to address it. So we haven't seen any regulations in the US here yet, but we have seen guidelines come from the White House. And we've also, California did look at passing a law, which was vetoed by the governor recently. But I think that's going to happen down the road. I actually had a little conversation yesterday at the United Nations as a group of nations coming together, and from a peacekeeping perspective, another perspective, and the last thing you want AI to be able to do is fight wars on its own, and robots running around and killing people and causing a lot of destruction. So those guide rails are the first things that countries and nations should be looking at getting. But I think this is again where the European Union is a little bit ahead of us. They are looking at passing more. They already have, and they're looking at passing even more guidelines and rules and regulations. But I would emphasize having these guardrails is very important, because without that there'll be chaos, and we've already seen some of them in terms of content creation, content generation on certain social media platforms. So it needs to be controlled, and it needs to be regulated from that perspective.
Well, let me thank everyone on our panel for your thoughts this morning on AI in AdOps. And I'll turn things over to Mark Orman for some final words.
Okay, I'm going to keep it brief. There's really, I'm going to say 3 items I want to hit, and it won't take me more than 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So first, a couple personal observations I think is interesting that I have. So on the legal front, I'm hoping that we follow Europe, so that every time we go on a website, we have to spend the first 15 minutes accepting cookies. I find that to be a great experience. I think it's interesting on the legal side, because I was thinking when you mentioned, I just received a 36-page IP patent application, and it's all wrong. I'm thinking, now I know why, right? The AI put it together. And finally, Frank, to your point, I thought it was really interesting on these efficiencies on the development side. And in fact, really from some of your inspiration, we have a project that we're going to be working on, a matrix locker enhancement project. Kurt Rao, who left, was really our client who inspired us to work on that. We're going to actually follow your lead and see if we can develop that using AI. So we appreciate your leadership in that aspect. For Matrix itself, one of the things that you'll see, we talk about AI, we have the panel, we're partnering with Cognistics and Sanjay's team, and our goal is really to start in the new year in using AI, as you know, we're an revenue management tool, to start identifying where the future spend is going to be, whether it's by category, et cetera, and what segments, so that we can then take that data and overlay it on each one of our clients to tell them, hey, this is where you really excel, where you can take advantage of the trends going forward, and here's where you're vulnerable. And then taking that down even further to the individual AE level into our account planning tool, so that when the AE is doing their monthly planning of, here's the accounts that I want to grow, here's the new business that I want to receive, really helping give them guidance as to here's where you're good, here's where you're bad, and here's where the trends are going to help you, and here's where they're not. So that's something you guys can look forward to us working on in the future. The final note, I just want to thank people. So first, there's Joe Lambert. He's a member of MASC, and he was really the inspiration and catalyst for this breakfast, so we thank him for that. I think everybody knows Brenda Hetrick and Deanna Kennedy. Now, I think people think Deanna is part of Matrix. She's actually not. She's the firm that we use to help us with marketing. She's really our marketing group, and she's part of Ironistic, so we really thank her for all her dedication to our firm. I'm almost done. One more thank you. It's to the panelists. All these companies, I think you know Matrix, we have a great relationship with all of them. We would highly recommend that if you don't work with them or don't have a relationship, that you get the opportunity to get to know them. They're all great people you can trust. I always believe when I recommend somebody and it doesn't work out, you should hold me responsible, so there's a lot of people I don't recommend. But in this case, this is a great group of people. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you so much. Have a great conference.